Hello everyone, RVer Frank here. The Alabama Hills, managed by the U.S. Bureau of Land Management as the BLM Alabama Hills Recreation Area, are a protected habitat and for public enjoyment. The Alabama Hills. What else can be said that hasn't been told or shown already through numerous books, movies, and YouTube videos? Do a Google search and you can spend hours, maybe days or longer, and just scratch the surface of knowledge about this place. It would likely take more than a lifetime. During this drive, I will talk about what I find interesting, and it starts here. Today, we are going on what is called Picture Rock Circle. Here at the Alabama Hills, the hundreds of rock formations cause you to imagine in these weird hills many things. You may see people, animals, or other objects, depending where you stand, the changing light that causes colors to change minute by minute, the harsh glare and revealing shadows, then the light changes and obliterates their shapes. We all imagine things differently and don't always make out the same objects. It always happens around you. Do you see it? I don't either. It could take hours, kind of like searching for that one puzzle piece. But in this case, it is more of one's imagination than anything really being there. But it's fun to try, so on we go. Okay, let's get started. How many rock shapes can you see? Do you see it? Well, that one was easy. Think you're up for the challenge? Do you see it? I don't either. Well, how did you do? There'll be more of that later. It didn't take long after the invention of moving pictures for Hollywood to discover a spectacular location within a few hours' drive. Since the early years of filmmaking, directors and their production units have used the Lone Pine and Eastern Sierra area to represent the iconic American West. Since the early 1920s, more than 150 movies and about a dozen television shows have been filmed here, including Tom Mix Films, Hopalong Cassidy Films, The Gene Autry Show, The Lone Ranger, and Bonanza, and continue to now mostly American Westerns, although for many films they stood in for India and Middle East the Gobi Desert, China, and even Africa in 2 Tarzan films. Meanwhile, classics such as Gunga Din, The Walking Hills, Yellow Sky, Springfield Rifle, The Violent Men, Bad Day at Black Rock, Part of How the West Was Won, and Joe Kidd. In the late 1940s and early 50s, the area was also a popular location for films of B-Western actor Tim Holt. The first documented feature film shot entirely on location at Lone Pine was The Roundup in 1920, a silent Western starring Fatty Arbuckle in his first feature film, which made good use of the incredible scenery near Lone Pine, with the weirdly eroded jumbled rocks of the Alabama hills by the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Over the years, Lone Pine has played host to all of the Hollywood studios. Hundreds of the industry's best-known directors, William Wyler, William Wellman, John Ford, George Stevens, and Quentin Tarantino among them. The list of actors who worked in the area is extensive and also includes John Wayne, Bing Crosby, Humphrey Bogart, Barbara Stanwyck, Jeff Bridges, Jamie Foxx, Spencer Tracy, Cary Grant, Gregory Peck, Randolph Scott, Audie Murphy, and Robert Downey Jr., to name a few. Western TV shows peaked in the late 50s, with over 26 series running in primetime any one week. The Alabamas were home to many of the series or episodes, including Half Gun Will Travel, Gene Autry Show, Annie Oakley, Bonanza, The Lone Ranger, Hopalong Cassidy, to name a few. Sci-fi producers have found the Alabamas out of this world for movies like Star Trek V and VII, Deep Space Nine, and a perfect landscape for the backdrops of Tremors, Gladiator, and Dinosaurs, and many parts of the films Iron Man and Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen were filmed here. Several key scenes in Django Unchained and the Disney's new Lone Ranger. The more recent productions, such as Tremors and Joshua Tree, were filmed at Movie Ranch sites known as Movie Flats and Movie Flat Road. Dozens of natural arches are among the main attractions at the Alabama Hills. They can be accessed by short hikes from the Whitney Portal Road, the Movie Flat Road, and the Horseshoe Meadow Road. As you can see, the Alabama Hills are a range of hills and rock formations near the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevada in the Owens Valley. Though geographically separate from the Sierra Nevada, they are part of the same geological formation. Wildflowers bloom earlier in the Alabama Hills than in the nearby Sierras. Desert flora such as paintbrush and prairie smokes are likely to be spotted in May and June along the arid hillsides. Lucky springtime visitors may also encounter male sage-grouse gathering in open areas and strutting as part of their mating ritual. The rounded contours of the Alabamas contrast with the sharp ridges of the Sierra Nevada to the west. Though this might suggest that they formed from a different process of mountain formation, the Alabamas are the same age as the nearby Sierras. The difference in wear can be accounted for by different patterns of erosion. Both the Alabamas and the Sierras resulted from a cataclysmic uplifting of the Earth's crust about 1 million years ago. Millennia of wind, snow, and wind-blown sand have shaped the unusual rounded formations seen in the Alabamas. In contrast, the Sierras were weathered by continual freezing and thawing typical of higher altitudes. Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the contiguous United States, towers several thousand feet above this low range, which itself is 1,500 feet above the floor of Owens Valley. However, gravity surveys indicate that the Owens Valley is filled with about 10,000 feet of sediment, and that the Alabamas are the tip of a very steep escarpment. This feature may have been created by many earthquakes similar to the Lone Pine earthquake, which, in a single event, caused a vertical displacement of 15 to 20 feet. There are two main types of rock exposed at Alabama Hills. Now bear with me on this. One is an orange, drab, weathered, metamorphosized volcanic rock that is 150 to 200 million years old. The other type of rock exposed here is 82 to 85 million year old biotite monzogranite, which weathers to potato-shaped large boulders, many of which stand on end due to weathering acting on many nearly vertical joints in the rock.
start up. Oh, it's kind of heavy. I'm gonna get killed. I guess I'm gonna do it alone.
People often question why Alabama Hills are named after a southern state that these granite rocks look almost nothing like. The connection between the Alabama Hills west of Lone Pine and the state of Alabama do have a connection, but a somewhat indirect one. The story goes back to the Civil War, when the Confederacy had a warship built in secret in 1862 at Birkenhead, United Kingdom, by John Leard, Sons and Company. After commissioning in international waters, the CSS Alabama went on a 2-year rampage of naval encounters, eventually sinking at least 65 Union ships. The ship, under the command of Captain Seames, sailed to Cape Town, South Africa, and on to the East Indies. The ship sailed back to Cherbourg, France, and the captain requested dry dock to make repairs. By this time, the ship had become rather famous, and Southern sympathizers mining in the Alabama Hills named their mine, and eventually the mining district west of Lone Pine, the Alabama Mining District. The CSS Alabama had become almost legendary, as Union ships seldom encountered the ship at sea and survived to talk about it. The USS Kearsarge, under the command of Captain Winslow, made for the port of Cherbourg, and with the help of another Union ship, had the Alabama boxed in. What ensued was the most famous of the Civil War naval battles. Captain Seames chose to fight rather than to rot away in dry dock, and through diplomatic channels relayed his challenge to Captain Winslow. After 3 days, the Alabama sailed out to challenge the Kearsarge and was reduced to a sinking wreck. Captain Seames had not known that the Kearsarge had been armored clad in the Azores a year ago before pursuing the Alabama, and he later said he would not have challenged the Union ship if he had known this. The Kearsarge rescued a majority of the survivors, but 41, including Captain Seames, were rescued by the British ship, the Deerhound, and taken to England. Northern sympathizers in the Lone Pine area had their turn at naming things to celebrate the victory of the USS Kearsarge. Kearsarge Peak, north of Lone Pine, the Kearsarge Pass, and the next mining district north of Alabama Mining District is called the Kearsarge Mining District. Finally, the town of Kearsarge was located on the Carson and Colorado narrow gauge railroad line, just east of the town of Independence. By driving out Mazurka Canyon Road, you can find the site to this day, now marked by a historic plaque and some ruins. In November of 1984, the Alabama wreck was discovered, and in 2002, a diving team recovered her bell and other items from the ship. While most of these historic battles did not happen in the Alabamas, a famous battle of the Owens Valley Indian Wars of 1861 to 1864 did. The Battle of the Alabama Hills was one of the most famous of the skirmishes, battles, and massacres of this war.